Harley-Davidson is using that as an excuse, and I don't like that because I've been very good to Harley-Davidson, and they used it as an excuse. And I think the people that ride Harleys are not happy with Harley-Davidson, and I wouldn't be either.
Donald Trump went after Harley-Davidson hard, threatening to bring the iconic company down because they turned away from American values and chased profits overseas. He called their decision to move production abroad an act of betrayal, insisting it would only speed up their collapse. Harley is stuck between clinging to outdated traditions and pushing clumsy new strategies, making failure look likely. What stings the most for people is that this was once a brand that proudly stood for American pride, but now it's trying to reinvent itself as just another global corporation. That's exactly what Harley-Davidson did in 2018. They didn't just disappoint their customers, they wrecked the image they had built over a century. For more than 100 years, Harley stood for rebellion, toughness, strength, and independence. But the moment real challenges appeared, they abandoned those American roots and shifted production overseas. There was no apology, no hesitation, just cold corporate language dressed up as strategy. And of course, President Trump reacted. His entire campaign had been built on keeping products American-made. Then came the announcement that Harley would start building bikes in Thailand. It's no surprise Trump didn't take that well. He blasted them on Twitter, calling the move an act of disloyalty. And it's clear why. This wasn't just about shifting production. It was about betraying the customers who thought they were supporting a true American tradition. Trump spelled it out plainly, warning that Harley's choice would lead to their own downfall. He wasn't wrong. Investors were frustrated too. Harley's stock took a hard hit, falling 18% that year. That kind of drop is like slamming on the brakes. The message from the market was clear. You let us down, so we're out. This went far beyond a PR issue. It was an identity crisis. How does a company go from being praised by the president as a symbol of America in early 2017 to being condemned by him just a year later? Only a brand that has lost its confidence. Only a brand that looks fragile. That brand was Harley-Davidson. And then it got even stranger. Trump put tariffs on foreign steel and aluminum to protect American jobs. So what did Harley do? Did they back the move and say, yes, we'll keep our work here at home? Not at all. They went all in and opened up shop in Thailand. Yes, Thailand. As if that move would impress a loyal Harley rider in Sturgis, South Dakota. They even tried to spin it as a clever strategy to keep access to European markets. You mean the same market that isn't exactly covered in eagle tattoos and denim jackets? That one? And let's not forget, in June 2018, the EU raised tariffs on American motorcycles from 6% to 31%. Sure, that hurt. But what made it worse was Harley using that as an excuse to pull out of America so quickly. To top it off, they shut down their Kansas City plant, a place that stood for real American manufacturing and real American workers. Instead of protecting jobs, they cut them, all while pretending they were boosting production in York, Pennsylvania. The reality? That wasn't the whole story. Behind the patriotic talk, they were quietly expanding operations in Brazil and India too, because nothing screams American strength like moving more jobs thousands of miles away. The shocking part was Harley insisting the Thailand plant would only serve overseas markets. But then, those same bikes built abroad started showing up in US dealerships. American buyers thought they were getting homegrown machines, only to learn their so-called American Harleys were imports. It was outrageous, like finding out your grandma's apple pie actually came from a factory in China and was reheated in a microwave box. Trump didn't miss a beat. He called them out directly, making it clear that if Harley abandoned American soil, they'd face steep taxes bringing those products back. Honestly, that was the least of what they deserved. If a company chooses to walk away from its roots, it shouldn't expect to keep enjoying the loyalty of the people it betrayed. Let's talk about that major stock drop. After the troubles in Thailand and Trump's public attacks, Harley's share price sank hard. Investors bailed out, and a company once seen as tough and dependable suddenly looked fragile. Instead of grit, they hid behind polished statements and corporate excuses. This wasn't Harley's first close call. Back in the 1980s, Japanese motorcycles were dominating, and Harley only pulled through because the US government added tariffs and they doubled down on American production. Now they're moving in the opposite direction. It's no wonder their longtime supporters are furious. Do you really think a rider who's been on a Harley since 1976 is going to embrace a silent electric bike built in Asia? Of course not. Here's a number. Harley's executives should have taken taken seriously. In 2017, 61% of their sales came from the US. That means most of their money was made right at home. But instead of protecting and appreciating those loyal buyers, Harley decided to chase the rest of the world. Their plan was to flip the balance, aiming for half of their sales to come from overseas. It wasn't about growing carefully, it was about changing course entirely. The result? They alienated their core audience. And to make matters worse, Harley's leadership thought it was smart to lean into electric bikes, pour money into global marketing, and talk about being eco-friendly and socially conscious. How wonderful! Great job, Harley! Nothing says rugged biker spirit like green messaging and a scooter that hums like a household appliance. Instead of doubling down on what made them iconic, they panicked and tried to reinvent themselves as a polished worldwide corporation, and the experiment was a disaster. At the same time, the loyal, working-class riders who had stood by Harley for decades watched the brand transform into something unrecognizable. The rebellious edge disappeared. The roar of the engine was replaced with an artificial noise. Their trust was shattered. All of this happened because Harley chose to chase international markets and a global image instead of staying true to the people who built their success. It's important to remember that the downfall started with Harley refusing to pay higher taxes on imported goods. Rather than face the challenge and protect their own workers, they folded almost immediately. They caved to foreign demands, shut down American plants, and tried to spin it as a clever decision. But there's nothing clever about turning your back on the very people who made you strong. There's nothing innovative about abandoning your roots. Harley had one job: remain American, remain authentic, and remain bold. The truth is, they didn't just lose customers, they lost an entire community of loyal supporters. Trump's base, factory workers, veterans, and ordinary Americans who built Harley's reputation in the first place. Those people felt utterly abandoned. They were the same ones who kept Harley alive back in the 1980s when Japanese bikes nearly pushed them out. And how did Harley repay that loyalty? By chasing profits overseas, like someone wandering aimlessly trying to get Wi-Fi in the wilderness. To these riders, Harley wasn't simply a brand, it was a lifestyle, a legacy, and a treasured tradition passed down through generations. People weren't just purchasing a bike, they were buying into an entire identity, but that identity quickly shifted, tied now to factories in Thailand and messaging about social issues. Perfect. Then Trump entered the picture, turning Harley's choices into a rallying point. It worked because he said out loud what many riders already felt but hadn't expressed. Harley had turned its back on them. From then on, Harley wasn't only a brand, it became a cautionary tale of what happens when a company forgets the people who built it. The backlash wasn't about profits alone, it was personal, like the end of a long relationship where the company walked away and left behind nothing but an electric scooter as a parting gift. Disappointments hit harder when businesses try to mask them with buzzwords like sustainability and inclusivity. Try telling someone who proudly wears camo and loves the sight of a bald eagle that their next bike will run on batteries and come with features about feelings. The reaction won't be pretty. If hearing the unfiltered truth is your thing, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown of another corporate misstep. Harley, already facing plenty of backlash, managed to stir up even more anger with their choices. They leaned hard into globalism, chasing environmental goals, expanding international supply chains, and trying to break into new markets. Meanwhile, Trump was publicly slamming India for hitting American motorcycles with a 100% tax. Instead of standing firm or pushing back in defense of American trade, Harley folded without a fight. They agreed to shift production overseas and wait until demand returned, but that demand never came. In the process, the deep bond Harley once had with its working-class loyalists was completely broken. Trump accused them of being disloyal, and to be fair, Harley almost handed him that argument by moving jobs overseas, focusing too much on international markets, and pushing a progressive rebrand. They ignored the core of what their riders actually valued and ended up alienating them. Just when it seemed like things couldn't sink lower, Harley doubled down by rolling out electric motorcycles. These machines were quiet instead of roaring. One model even came with fake engine sounds, computer-generated noise pretending to be power. It was like swapping out a live rock concert for background elevator music and hoping no one would notice. The famous potato potato rumble that riders loved was suddenly recreated by audio engineers through speakers. Who really asked for that? And it didn't stop there. They started talking about AI safety features and sleek digital dashboards. Suddenly, Harley-Davidson was being associated with electric motorcycles. The vision sounded awkward, like trying to attach Siri to a chainsaw. The longtime riders wanted nothing to do with it. These were people who kept their machines alive with wrenches, grease, and attitude. They had no interest in handlebars that acted like therapists. Even the dealerships began to shift. What once were gritty, loud garages filled with raw energy and toughness turned into stylish showrooms. Picture an Apple store, but decorated with leather, dimmed lights, designer scents, artisanal coffee, and even yoga classes. When a brand begins to crumble, flashy gestures won't patch the cracks. Rolling out yoga sessions beside a high-priced motorcycle may look unusual enough to grab attention, but it isn't a solution. It certainly didn't impress the younger generations. Harley's attempt to reinvent itself for millennials and Gen Z by pushing electric motorcycles and showcasing cutting-edge technology fell flat. The problem was never just about new gadgets or fresh designs. It was about understanding the reality of the audience they were chasing. Young adults today are facing skyrocketing rents, suffocating student loans, and the relentless weight of inflation. The idea that people barely finding stability in their 20s would eagerly drop over $20,000 on a luxury motorcycle shows how out of touch Harley's leadership had become. These young consumers are struggling to pay monthly bills, and Harley expected them to embrace an image of rebellion packaged neatly with financing options and installment plans. The effort didn't resonate at all because no one believed the illusion they were trying to sell. In their desperation to repair a damaged image, Harley turned to the usual corporate language, offering broad promises with no details to back them up. They spoke of restoring American craftsmanship, reviving local jobs, and bringing pride back to manufacturing. But these words were hollow, floating in the air without any substance behind them. No clear factories, no concrete investments, no budgets, no roadmaps, just platitudes. It was like someone swearing they'll run a marathon while still living off fast food and never putting on running shoes. The intention might sound bold, but the lack of preparation and commitment makes it meaningless. Harley dressed this uncertainty in polished statements and performed confidence for the cameras, but beneath the speeches was an unmistakable fear. They weren't charging forward with conviction, they were stalling, hoping to look competent while struggling to find direction. The deeper issue was identity. Harley had no idea how to bridge the gap between its legacy as a proud, old-school American icon and its ambitions of becoming a sleek, globally recognized tech brand. The contradiction tore at their foundation, leaving them exposed and confused. Instead of moving closer to a balance, they stumbled further away from both sides. The outcome was predictable. They damaged their credibility with older loyalists while never capturing the interest of younger audiences. In the process, they worsened their own problems, and their brand became a case study in how not to evolve. And into this chaos stepped Trump, eager for the spotlight, pointing fingers at the company's missteps and claiming victory with a simple message: I was right. His commentary didn't solve Harley's troubles, but it underscored them, making the company's failures even harder to ignore. He wasn't the cause of Harley's troubles, but his behavior dragged those struggles out into the open where everyone could see them. What once might have been a private internal crisis is now a spectacle, and Harley is left balancing on a shaky line. On one side lies the nostalgia of the old days, the memory of roaring engines, and the rebel culture that once defined them. On the other side is the uncertain promise of sleek new technologies and futuristic ideas. They're caught between eras, with one boot planted firmly in tradition and the other stepping into an unfamiliar tomorrow, all while trying to manage the rising frustrations of angry customers, the hesitation of nervous investors, and the relentless questions of the press. Harley is attempting to satisfy every side, but in doing so, they are stretching themselves thin. They're determined to maintain the rough, untamed image that has been their signature for decades, but at the same time, they're pushing forward products that feel completely opposite. Quiet electric scooters, smart integrations, technology-heavy designs. The clash is obvious, and it is not working. Back in the 1980s, the spirit of national pride was the wind at their backs, fueling their comeback and reinforcing their image as a symbol of American grit. But now, that same patriotic association has turned against them, highlighting every compromise, every overseas part, every electric hum where a deep rumble used to be. The irony is striking. The very thing that once carried them forward is now holding them down. The Harley brand still has value, but with every move away from what made it special, that value weakens a little more. The financial numbers might not immediately show the full extent of the problem. On paper, things could still appear steady enough, but beneath the surface, the culture within the company is eroding. The connection with their most loyal riders, the core community that once defined Harley, has grown strained. When the people who have spent decades defending your brand no longer recognize you, the issue is far greater than sales or market share. It signals something deeper, something existential. It feels less like a temporary stumble, and more like watching a slow decline. decline, where the brand's identity and spirit slip further away with every passing year, and the company seems unable to stop it.